Okay, good evening. We are now going to go for the last run of this very special and powerful Dvar Malchus that was given Parshas Naso at a surprise Farbringen. Mamish surprise. No one mamish knew about it, as discussed earlier. We are holding now, we did already three classes on this. We are holding now in the middle, we learned the middle of Perek Yud. So I'm just going to learn just the last Nakuda that we learned. The main theme over here in this Farbringen was the idea of Torah Chadasha, new Torah. And the idea of new Torah means that the Eibishter, Mashiach will come, new Torah will be revealed. And we learned there's three things over here. There's Torah Chadasha, there's the new Torah that's going to be revealed when Mashiach comes. And as a consequence of Torah Chadasha, there's also going to be a new world, an Olam Chadash, a new world. And then, because it says, since the world is created through the Torah, when there is an upgrade in the Torah, to the point that the Torah looks like a new Torah, then the world is also a new world. And then finally, what makes all of this happen, how does all this take place, is through the obviously it's going to take Mashiach to come, that it's going to happen. But the power to make Mashiach come lies in each and every one of us. As we learned last week, that there is a nitzutz of Mashiach inside each and every one of us. And when we are megala, our nitzutz of Mashiach, our spark of Mashiach, and individually, that brings about the hisgalus of the Mashiach HaKlolis, of the general Mashiach. If you can only make this muted again, and if I need to be, I'll unmute myself. Okay. Oops. So we are now. So the Rebbe said that this has a special shaychus to the Shabbos after Shavuos, which was Parshas Naso. It was last week's Shabbos. The Shabbos after Shavuos is a special connection to this. And it's connected to it, he said, on many levels. Number one, the main idea is because it's the Shabbos after Shavuos. The main idea of Shavuos is Matan Torah. Hashem gives the Torah. But the Chiddush of Torah, the opening up of the Torah, that happens the Shabbos after Shavuos. So since the Chiddush of Torah that's going to be when Mashiach comes is not part of Matan Torah. It's part of the Chiddush of Torah. So it belongs primarily to after Matan Torah, to the Shabbos after Matan Torah. That's when we open up the Torah that we got, and Mashiach will open it on the deepest level. And therefore he said, on Shabbos after Shavuos, you can see these three ideas: the new Torah, the new world, and the power that makes it happen, the new Jew, if we can say, the inner Jew, the Pintal Yid, the Nitzutz of Mashiach. All these three things emphasized on this Shabbos from all different angles. Angle number one from Parshas HaShavua. Angle number two from Pirkei Avos. Angle number three from Shabbos itself. So last week we discussed how it's hinted to in Parshas HaShavua, Parshas Naso. All these three ideas. The new Torah, the new Torah is hinted to in Naso Yisroel, which the idea was to lift the mind to higher. Lifting the mind higher means you lift your mind to the power of your tainug. Learning Torah with tainug, with pleasure. And learning Torah with pleasure is what stimulates chidushim. Because again, remember, the point of here is to create Torah chadasha, to bring forth new Torah. And this will cause Hashem to bring forth new Torah. How do you bring forth new Torah when you learn Torah not with your power of seichel, but you learn Torah with your pnimius hanefesh? You learn Torah with your kayach hatainug. Tainug is mispashet. It opens up all kayachas hanefesh. It's your etzem. It's the giloya etzem, and that has the power to reveal chidush Torah. So that's the idea of Naso Yisroel, especially since we know that when Mashiach will come, the chidush Torah is going to be tamei Torah, and tamei Torah doesn't mean intellectual reasons; it means the pleasure of Torah is going to be revealed. The Eibishter's pleasure that he has in mitzvahs and the like. Then he explained how it also, you see the chiddush of the world in Parshas Naso. As a consequence of the chiddush of Torah comes the chiddush of the world. The chiddush of the world is related to the fact that Parshas Naso deals completely with the idea of Mishkan. And Mishkan means, the reason why we make a Mishkan, Hashem told us to make a Mishkan after Matan Torah, is that the Torah should permeate the world. It shouldn't just be Jews receive a Torah and we're flapping our wings and we're soaring high. The point of the Torah is to take the Torah and anchor it down in the world. That's why immediately after Matan Torah, Hashem taught us how to make a Mishkan. Mishkan means Hashras Hashchina ba'olam in the world. So since we're dealing now with Torah Chadasha, so Parshas Naso emphasizes that the Torah Chadasha does not remain in the ear. It doesn't remain just an abstract experience, but it's implemented in the world, emphasizing the idea that the Mishkan, not only that there is a Mishkan is in Parshas Teruma, but what's mainly emphasized over here is that the Mishkan travels. It travels from place to place. Actually, it's, by the way, this week is Parshas Ba'aloischa. This is the theme of today's Chumash. It's the traveling of the Mishkan. Where is it traveling? In the desert, which means you're spreading Hashras Hashchina, the dwelling of the Shechina, which comes from the Torah, and you're spreading it throughout the entire Midbar. You're bringing it everywhere, to the far-flung corners. And when is that going to be manifest on the highest, deepest level? That it's going to translate completely in the world. That's only going to happen by the third Beis HaMikdash, because only the third Beis HaMikdash is the entire world going to be like the Beis HaMikdash, that you're going to be allowed to say Hashem's name explicitly, which we never had that by the first two, or by the Mishkan, only the third one, which means Hashras Hashchina, the dwelling of the Shechina, the revelation of the Shechina, has fully anchored down and permeated every part of the world, all the way out here to the west coast as well. Everywhere. There isn't a place devoid of Him. And that's Parshas Naso, the new world that comes as a result of the new Torah. Finally, in Parshas Naso, we also have the Nitzutz Mashiach revealed in each and every one of us that makes this all happen. Because both in the beginning of the Parsha and in the end of the Parsha, the Rebbe emphasized. In the beginning of the Parsha, it was emphasized in the idea that we're counting Jews, and the idea of counting is emphasizing the equality, because there's no one, we're not measuring, we're not summarizing people based on their achievements, accomplishments, personal qualities, personality traits. Every single person is counted equally. So the idea of that then represents the part of us that's all equal. And the part of us that's all equal, mitzad amitis inyanim, is yechidah shebenefesh. The fact that we're indispensable, every person is infinitely precious, is because of a yechidah shebenefesh, which is a spark of the Eibishter mamish. And over there, it's indivisible, one person from the other. You can't say a bigger slice, a smaller. It's not sliceable. It's every yid is the ganzer Eibishter. Every yid is all of the divine. That's yechidah shebenefesh, and therefore the counting emphasizes at the beginning of Parshas Naso we count. The other, and then at the end of the parsha, it is also emphasized this achdus that there is amongst the Bnei Yisroel, because all the Nesiim brought karbanos. That's the end of Parshas Naso, where all the Nesiim bring their karbanos, and yet it says in the Medrash, when Rashi brings it, the Eibishter considered it as if every single Nasi brought every single day. How can it be that every single Nasi brought every single day, and even though each of them brought a different karban, actually it was the same karban, but it was completely different in terms of its flavor, because everybody had different kavanas, everybody had different intentions, yet it's all considered that all of them brought their karban all on the same day. That is because, again, the real reason for that is because we are all essentially one on the level of Yechidah. This is till where we learned last week. And the Rebbe continues, and he says, this idea that the nitzutz of Moshiach revealed, the Shabbos after Matan Torah and Parshas Naso, comes to a stronger expression on the parsha following that, which is Parshas Ba'aloischa, which is this week's parsha. In as much as Parshas Ba'aloischa also belongs to last Shabbos, because Shabbos by Mincha we already read Parshas Ba'aloischa. By Mincha we're always turning over the chapter, we read already the next parsha. So in Parshas Ba'aloischa you also have this idea, because Where do you have the Achdus in Parshas Ba'aloischa? You have 7 lamps. That's what Ba'aloischa begins with, lighting the lamps. And we know the lamps represent the souls. And the reason there are 7 is because there are different pathways, different ways of serving Hashem that is expressed through each neshama has a different path. Yet, it's one menorah. And so much one, it's hammered out from one piece. And we say about them that that even though they're 7, they all shine towards the middle. That means that there is a unification, a power of unity that unifies all the individual different pathways and services. Why is that? Because at our core we're really one. I discussed this actually in my shir this week, Parsha in My Life, called Brighter Lamps for a Brighter World. Very geschmack, this idea of how on the higher, deeper levels we're all one, and only as we move down into Olam Abriya, more into the world of creation, that's when, and because of our avodah that we need to do in the world, that's where we pick up certain differences that each one of us get cut out differently, but we're all cut out from the same cloth. In essence, it's all one piece. But that essence of one piece, that's your, at its truest point, is Yechidush Benefesh. That's the nitzutz of Mashiach. And when we reveal that nitzutz, then we bring to be a Mashiach. So that too is emphasized in Parshas Ba'aloischa. The Rebbe continues that in Parshas Ba'aloischa it's geschmack, because now it's Parshas Ba'aloischa. Even though again the Farbrengen was in Parshas Naso, but it was in the time of Parshas Naso where Parshas Naso and Parshas Ba'aloischa overlap each other, because by Mincha Shabbos it's still Parshas Naso, but already Parshas Ba'aloischa. So over there the Rebbe says another idea, and that is that in the beginning of Parshas Ba'aloischa, it pays right after the story of the menorah. It talks about separating the Leviim, giving the Leviim what it takes to what it took to differentiate the Leviim from the rest of the Jewish people and elevate them to the highest status that the Leviim had. Which this idea of separating the Leviim, which seems to be the total opposite of what we're just saying. We're already noticing a hierarchy. We're noticing a separation between Jews. But the Rebbe says the separation that we see, that we have Shevet Levi being designated and separated and elevated and singled out, is not that they should be singled out and become an individual group separated from everybody else, but rather that they should transmit of their elevation and their transcendence into the rest of the Jewish people. In other words, we separate a group not for separation, but we separate a group to climb up to a higher state of connection to Hashem, and that transcendental connection to the Eibishter should then be transmitted to all Jews, and all Jews should be elevated to the status of Shevet Levi, which really, that status of Shevet Levi as an individual group is really that Shevet Levi is the one that accesses the Mashiach point. They're like the pioneers. That's what they are. They go ahead to be pioneers. To pioneer what? To be elevated. To be elevated in which sense? That they have the Yechidush Benefesh accessible, revealed in their souls, and from them they lift up the rest of the Jewish people into that state. Where do we see that? That the separation of Levi is not for the sake of Levi, but the separation of Levi is to later transmit the quality of Levi to all Jews, in a sense that all Jews become Leviim. And not only that, but that all Jews eventually become Kohanim. And not only that, but that all Jews become the Kohen Gadol, to that level of holiness. In other words, that people amongst the Jewish people get elevated to higher statuses, it's not meant to be a separation, it's meant to be an asinas koyach, an empowerment for everybody to achieve that. But you need someone to go ahead of the pack, so to speak. Where do we see that? Because Parshas Ba'aloischa, we find right away in the first Rashi says that Shevet Levi did not participate in the inauguration sacrifices that were done in the end of Parshas Naso. All the Nesiim brought inaugurational karbanos. Shevet Levi did not participate. Aaron HaKohen, who was that kind of the head of the Leviim, in the sense that he's the head of the Kohanim, and the Kohanim is still part of Shevet Levi, of this elevated tribe. He felt bad that he was not part of it. And Hashem said to him, don't worry, yours is greater than theirs. How is yours greater than theirs? You will light the menorah. So, by saying that, he's separating him from them by giving him his own stature. A greater thing. They're only doing karbanai, sacrifices. You're lighting the menorah for whatever explanation. Menorah is done in the inside. Menorah is will never stop. Will last forever. Karbanais was interrupted, and so on. So whatever the explanation is, but we are now separating Levi. But the Rebbe says in this very story, you see the opposite as well, because you're separating Levi, but at the same time you're juxtaposing Levi to the Nesiim. In other words, the quality of Shevet Levi was not put in another parsha; it was put as a continuation immediately, as a continuum to what was said earlier, which means that they're stepping ahead of the pack, but they're still connected. That's the point. Shevet Levi is like a locomotive. It's pulling the rest of the train. Everybody is still chained up and connected so that the rest can. Where do we see that? So in the inside of the Sikha, he doesn't say this point, but he says it in the footnote. You see it in the fact that Aaron is lighting the menorah. Think about it. When Aaron lights the menorah, who is he lighting? He's lighting all. We said earlier, the menorah represents all the Jews. The 7 different types of Jews is being ignited by Aaron. That means that Aaron is taking his fire, his spiritual status as Levi, and ultimately as Kohen, and ultimately as not just Kohen priest, but as high priest, and he's igniting them with his light. And that's his Maila. His quality is that he lights them. That means he's infusing them with whatever he has. And primarily this idea is seen, that everybody follows in Shevet Levi. And one more point, and this Maila that everybody's following Shevet Levi is the Maila of Mashiach, is the Maila of this Nitzutz, from the fact that the Rambam says, and the Rebbe mentioned this Rambam already earlier in the last week's passage that we learned last week. In the end of Hilchas Shemitah and Yovel, Rambam says over there that the Levites did not get a portion in Eretz Yisrael. That's what the Rambam is emphasizing. Why? Because God is their portion. They don't have a portion in the earthiness. They're completely spiritual. They're devoted completely to the Eibishter, God, and it says over there, God is their lot. Then the Rambam goes on to say, not only V'loy Shevet Levi Bilvad, it's not only Shevet Levi, but every single Jew that wants to follow suit and devote their lives completely towards a spiritual existence by learning Torah, by casting away the calculations of the masses and devoting themselves completely to the service of Hashem, they become sanctified with like Shevet Levi. And then the Rambam says they actually become Kodesh Kadashim. They become not just holy, holy of holies, which is the level of not just priestlyhood, but high priest by Kohen Gadol. So we see from here, and so we see that the quality of Levi is not just meant for Levi. The Leviim are the trailblazers, but eventually everybody's meant to catch up. Earlier in the Sikha, the Rebbe doesn't say it over here. Earlier in the Sikha, the Rebbe said that in Yemoisa Mashiach everybody will catch up, because Rambam says that at that time all of the Jewish people will not be busy anymore. Won't be occupied anymore with worldly. What's the difference now of Shevet Levi and others? Others were farmers, were caretakers of the land, and Shevet Levi, they didn't get any land because they were supposed to be devoted just to spiritual pursuits. When Mashiach comes, all of the Jewish people will be devoted just to the service of Hashem. So you see that connection that Shevet Levi is the leaders to lead everybody. And the Rambam brings a pasuk. The Rambam says, he brings the pasuk. What pasuk does he bring? He brings Gevaldig, he brings the pasuk that every Jew can do this. He says, this is what David HaMelech said, Hashem enos chelki, Hashem, God, you are my portion. V'koisi, and you're my cup. Ata toimich garali, you're the one who supports my lot, my lottery. Which means that you're my lottery, nothing else. I have nothing else. I am devoted. I want only you. which is the ambitions of Shevet Levi. And Rambam says that everybody can do this. Now the Rebbe says, amazing, that when Rambam says this, Rambam says that he's bringing the pasuk regarding David HaMelech, where David HaMelech is using the word goyrol. You are my lottery. In Chassidus, it is explained in different places that lottery represents the deepest point of the soul. We say every morning in davening, we say, Ma yafa, ashreinu ma tov chelkeinu, how great is my portion. Umanoyim, umanoyim goyrolenu, and how pleasant is our goyrol. So it is explained, chelkeinu, our portion, is generally conceived more to the inner powers of the soul. But goyrolenu, our lottery, represents something that transcends our mind, and that's our essence, which is beyond our conception of understanding. That's why it's a lottery. When you win something in a lottery, or when you choose something through a lottery, it means you're lifting yourself up to beyond your mind's choices. What are you going by? You're saying them, if this comes out, it means that I have essentially a bond with something like this. This is related to me on a much deeper level than my mind. That's Yechidah Shebenefesh. That's Mashiach, the union of Goyrol. That's why Yom Kippur, which is the idea when Yechidah Shebenefesh is revealed, they cast lots. Purim is the time of Mesiras Nefesh, and we know Purim is the time, the Yom Tov, that is not going to be canceled when Mashiach comes. Again, it's called Purim because Purim means lottery. Lottery represents this deepest point of the soul. And Rambam says that if a person wants to achieve Levite status, even if he's not a Levi, it's because he says, you are my lottery, which means the revelation of, and why is David the one who says it? Because David is connected, David Malka Mashiach. David is connected to this point because David is the forebearer of Mashiach, and he's already represents Mashiach, and Mashiach is going to reveal this. So Shevet Levi lives in the state of lottery. And they can lift everybody up into this state. Another place where we see that eventually everybody is meant to catch up. And that Shevet Levi is meant to shear this transcendence. Which is, again, what is this? This is the nekuda of Yechidah Shebenefesh. This is the deepest point of Yechidah Shebenefesh. Of Mashiach point, the nitzutz of Mashiach, the deepest inner point of the soul. And that that the purpose of this is to be shared with all of the Jewish people. And and that's going to happen when Mashiach comes. It's seen be also so geschmack. It's so, every word in the Sikha, if you take a look, especially if you learn the footnotes, it's so gewaldig. Can be seen in the fact that throughout in past history, the Leviim were segregated from the rest of the Jewish people. In what sense? Eretz Yisroel was divided into 12 portions, actually 9.5, but if you count the other side of the Jordan River, where Shevet Gad, Reuven, and half of Menashe, so altogether it's 12. Shevet Levi did not get a portion. Why? Because they are the clergy people. They're not related to mundane involvement, to business, and so on and so forth. They're above. So you see a divide. The upper class, or the higher, the more spiritual group, and then there is the working class. When Mashiach will come, in Sefer Yechezkel, it describes that Eretz Yisrael is going to be divided into 13 portions, not 12. And one of them is going to be given to Shevet Levi. Shar Echad is going to be for Levi, which means, does that mean that Levi is going to be demoted? That they're no more in that spiritual? No. That means that now they are equal with everybody else because they've lifted everybody up to their status. And like I said earlier, like we see that at that time, everybody's going to behave, even though we're going to have land, the land is going to produce on its own. I guess today's days we can understand that it's all going to be already, it's all going to be run by machinery, by robotics and so on and so forth and whatever. Not, we're going to have assistance from the nations in the world who at that time are going to appreciate the greatness of the Jewish people and they're going to help out. So the Jewish people will be able to devote themselves 24/7, all the Jewish people just to the service of Hashem, which means everybody's going to be on par with Shevet Levi. And again, this idea is through Gilui HaYechida, when the Yechida is revealed. So that's how you see in Parshas Bahaloischa, in this week's Parsha, again, which is still part of last week's Shabbos, Gilui HaYechida, that it takes in order to reveal Torah Chadasha, the new Torah, which is going to trigger the new Torah, because if you reveal your spark of Mashiach, that the collectiveness of that is going to reveal the spark of Mashiach is going to reveal the Mashiach HaKlalis, the Yechida HaKlalis, which is going to bring about Torah Chadasha, which is going to bring about the new world. Which, by the way, the fact that the Rebbe is talking so much how Shevet Levi is the ones who need to activate this by themselves and then eventually cause this to be spread throughout the Jewish people, perhaps we can say that this is related to the idea of Chassidim. Chassidim are the Shevet Levis of the world, dedicated to Pnimius HaTorah, the ones who have a deeper connection to the Nasi Hador, to the Yechida HaKlalis, to the Mashiach of the generation, ultimately to Mashiach Tzidkenu himself. And this teaches us that we need to access this, despite the fact that it's hard and difficult, but we need to uncover our Yechidah Shebenefesh and then activate this in the rest of the Jewish people as well. Perhaps the time is now. Okay. And based on all of this, And based on all of this, we can explain in a deeper level, the Rebbe says, the Achdus of the Jewish people that happened by Matan Torah. Now that we understand what's the root of Achdus, the root of the unity is related to Yechidah Shebenefesh. That's the root of the unity. We find when the Jews came to Har Sinai, they stood in a real deep state of Achdus. They were all very, very united. The Yidden were all very united. So, and we know that this was necessary for receiving the Torah. In order to receive the Torah, there had to be unity. The Rebbe says, but really in truth, it goes much deeper, much deeper. He says the real oimek of the Achdus comes from Yechidah Shebenefesh, from the deepest point of the soul. This wasn't that important for receiving the Torah. It was mostly important to receive, in order for us to receive the inner part of the Torah, the part that was not clickable, the part that was not accessible for thousands of years. Because we needed to be in that state of Achdus, not to receive Torah. We needed to be in that state of Achdus to receive the Yechidah of Torah, the essence of Torah, which is going to be the Torah Chadasha, the new Torah. It's going to be real when Mashiach comes. Because that Yechidah Shebet comes from it relates to us as we are one, to our point of divinity. It can only be transmitted to the part of us that is one with God, because this is God. What's Torah Chadash? Torah Chadash is the Eibishter's pleasure that he has in a mitzvah. You can't share pleasure with someone other. Pleasure is, you can only share it with yourself. You can't share it. It's not shareable. So only when we are Him, we can experience this. When Mashiach will come, as the Mashiach will elevate us, since He is the Yechidah, He will elevate us into that unity. As the Rebbe explains in Parshas Toldos, what is Mashiach? Mashiach is the revelation of Atzmos, of Hashem Himself in a physical body. And He reveals in each and every one of us how we too are nothing other than the essence of the Eibishter expressed in this world. That's what it is. All one, it's all Atzmos Mamish. And this is the oimek of Yechid, that's even deeper than Yechidah that the Rebbe says over there. So that level of Torah cannot be given unless Yechid is revealed. Now, once Yechid is revealed, we're one. So we can't be separated entities. We can't feel different and apart from each other if we're going to receive Torah Chadasha, the new Torah. To receive the Torah as it was given on Har Sinai, it didn't really require it. The Torah could have been given without that. It could have given individually. Hashem anyway spoke by Matan Torah individually to each person. So it could have been given that way. It was because of the Torah Chadasha that it required. You're going to say, if so, why did Hashem need the Achdus then? He could have waited that we should have the Achdus now, right before Mashiach comes. The answer is, as we said earlier, that by Matan Torah, Hashem gave the entire Torah. The Eibishter gave Kol Torah Kula, even Torah Chadasha. It's just that it wasn't revealed. It was in a zip drive. It was closed. But the transmission, the download happened then. And in order for it to be downloaded, we needed to be standing in that state. But the main point of it was for later, not for Matan Torah. The Achdos, the Vayichan Sham Yisroel Ke'ish Echad B'Lev Echad, with one, like one person, with one. It's an amazing idea. It was mainly for, and therefore the Rebbe says, it's mainly Nogeya, not so much on Shavuos, it's Nogeya Shabbos after Shavuos. Since Shabbos after Shavuos is when we begin exploring, that's when we access, that's when we receive, that's when we channel into ourselves Torah Chadasha, new Torah. Because as we remember, we said earlier, that's the time to start exploring Chidush Torah, the novelty of Torah. Ultimately, the ultimate novelty of Torah, the Torah Chadasha of Mashiach. For that reason, we have to have Achdus. And therefore, there's really two levels of Achdus. There is the Achdus that we have before Matan Torah, and then there is the Achdus that comes after Matan Torah. The Achdus before Matan Torah was to receive the Torah. The Achdus after Matan Torah is to explore the next dimension of Torah, Torah Chadash. And the Rebbe actually says it, we see it every day in our daily service. When do we say Hareini Makabel Alai Mitzvah V'Haftal Reacha Kamoich? Every day we go back to that unity. When do we go back to the unity? Before davening. We say, I accept upon myself to be joined and unified with every single Jew. When do we say it? The Rebbe says, not before Matan Torah of the day, after Matan Torah of the day. Why? Because we say it after we say Birchas HaTorah. Because first we say brachas every day, including in the Birchas HaShachar, in the morning blessings, is also Birchas HaTorah. After that, before we say Matovu, which we say Hareini Makabel Alai. So you see that the emphasis on Achdus is after Matan Torah, not before. Because it's really for the Torah Chadasha. It's mind-blowing. Okay, so now that we completed to show how Torah Chadasha and Olam Chadash and a new world and the power that makes it happen is all emphasized in Parshas Naso. Because of Parshas HaShavua, he's now going to reveal how it's also emphasized in Pirkei Avos that we read last Shabbos. Pirkei Avos that we read last Shabbos, what did we read? Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai. Hold it. It's already after Shavuos. Why are we reading Moshe Kibel Torah? Moshe received the Torah. And the answer is, it's after Shavuos. After Shavuos, we received the Torah. It's done already. What does it have to do with that? Because the Shabbos after Shavuos is when we begin unraveling the Torah. We begin exploring it. We begin opening it up. We've been extrapolating it. Kibel means to receive it. Ultimately, we start showing Chidushay Torah. We begin, in other words, on Shavuos, it's a download from above. Shabbos after Shavuos, Moshe Kibel Torah. It's we receive it, we absorb it, and we begin to unearth its treasures, opening it, digging, until we find the ultimate treasure. The ultimate treasure is the Chiddush Torah that God reveals in the Torah. And where do you see that the included in Moshe Kibel Torah is not only the chidushim that Jews have said for the last thousands of years, but the quintessential chidush, the greatest novel idea that God is going to reveal. Where do we see that Hashem is going to reveal? We see that because as an introduction to Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai, we say the Mishnah, Kol Yisroel Yeshlem Chelek La'olam Haba, before we begin Pirkei Avos. That means that what are we talking about? We're talking about the time of Olam Haba, the Torah that we're going to learn in Olam Haba, which is the time of the resurrection. That's what Olam Haba means. Which means after post-Mashiach. And in that time, that's what we're talking about. Moshel Kibel Torah. We go immediately from that Mishnah into Moshel Kibel Torah. So which Kibel Torah, which level of Torah are we talking about? The Torah that we're going to learn at the time of Kol Yisroel. Yashlam Chelek Lo Olam Haba. It's amazing how no one ever said these things. And the Rebbe says, it's seen at the beginning in Moshe Kibel Torah. It's also seen at the end, because in the end of Pirkei Avos, what do we say? We say another Mishnah. Rabbi Hananya ben Akashya Omer, Ratzak HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Es Yisroel, that Hashem wanted to purify the Jewish people, whatever. That's why He gave us a lot of mitzvahs. And He brings a pasuk. Hashem Chafetz Laman Tzidkoi. Hashem desired, because of His righteousness, Yagdil Torah v'Yadir, to increase the Torah and to strengthen it, to make the Torah mighty. Yagdil Torah, Hashem wanted that the Torah should become. That idea of Yagdil Torah v'Yadir, the Gemara says, the concept of Yagdil Torah v'Yadir is a certain type of Torah study. There is learning Torah, a regular Torah study, and that is when you learn Torah because you want to know how to conduct yourself. And then there is a much higher level of learning Torah. When you're learning hypotheses, when you're learning hypotheticals, the Gemara says, which it's not nogea la'alacha l'maisa, these things will never happen. You're just thinking, what would the Torah say on such a situation that we know is so absurd it will never happen, yet you want to... And the Gemara says that kind of learning is Yagdil Torah. You want to expand the Torah into every direction, deeper and deeper and deeper, and see every possible thing, even if it's... So it's not practical. And when does a person do that? After he finished studying everything that he needs in order for how to know how to halacha l'maisa, how to know how to behave himself, then you can start exploring into all angles, into all directions. So the Rebbe says that kind of limud Torah is going to be only primarily, even though it's possible now too, to extraordinary scholars who have already finished everything and they're beyond it and they can learn Yagdil Torah v'Yadir Torah. But the real Yagdil Torah v'Yadir type of study is only going to be after Mashiach comes. It's the Torah Chadasha. That's when we're going to learn Torah in that manner. Why? Because first of all, we're going to live forever, so we're going to have enough time to study. Secondly, the Torah that we're going to need to know regarding halacha l'maisa, we're going to, since we're not going to forget, we're going to retain all the information, because forgetting has to do with klipa, and when Mashiach comes, there won't be any klipa anymore. So therefore, we're going to learn one time, we're going to remember it. So even if it takes us a couple of years to study the entire Torah, once we've got that done and we have it under our belt, then we're all going to go into the infinite exploration of Torah as it is in its pure infinite state. Yagdil Torah v'Yadir type of Torah study. So you see both in the beginning of Pirkei Avos and in the end of Pirkei Avos that the Torah that we're talking about over here, that Moshe Kibel Torah is sandwiched, is not Torah from Bizman Hazeh, but it's Torah Shel Mashiach, it's the future Torah. And the Rebbe says, at one point in the Ha'ara, he says primarily in the days after Tchias HaMeisim, after the time when mitzvahs are going to be batal. So for sure, we don't need to learn Torah for the sake of knowing how to behave. And as we learned in a different sikha, doesn't mean we're not going to do mitzvahs, but that we're going to be programmed automatically to do mitzvahs. We're going to be so one with God that the will of God is just going to happen automatically. Because we are experiencing ourselves as Him. So we don't need to study it. That means we don't need to be told, we don't have to be commanded. But al kapanim, we won't even have to learn it then. We'll just know it instinctively. And then the learning of Torah is going to be Yagdil Torah v'Yadir. Now, so that's where you see Torah Chadasha and Pirkei Avos. But it's not enough to see Torah Chadasha. We also have to see Olam Chadasha, the new world. Where do we see the new world? Where do we see the new world in Pirkei Avos? It's from the Limud Torah in the manner of Torah Chadasha comes a new world. Why? Because further in Pirkei Avos it says Shloshet Dvar Olam Omed, and the three things the world stands, and then the three things the world is kayam, sustained. So you see that it's drawn into creation. And finally, in Pirkei Avos, you can also see the unity of the Jewish people. The Yechidah, again, the Yechidah that brings it all about, which is expressed in the unity. Where do you see that? Again, at the beginning of Pirkei Avos, immediately you see the unity of the Jewish people, because in the introductory Mishnah it says, all the Jewish people have a chelek to Olam Haba. Now, since it says all of Israel have a, without differentiating this one, that one, it's because of the Yechidah Shebenefesh, and that's what entitles the deepest point, the godly spark, the Mashiach point, which is in every Jew. And that's what entitles us to Olam Haba experience. So you see Gilui HaYechidah. And also in the end, when it speaks about Yagdil Torah v'Yadir, as we mentioned earlier, learning Torah in a way of Yagdil Torah, you also see a uniformness, a unification between all the Jewish people. Why? Here the Rebbe says a very geschmack idea. He says the Gemara speaks of Yagdil Torah v'Yadir regarding, the Gemara mentions this type of, the Gemara mentions the pasuk, Yagdil Torah v'Yadir, that we should increase Torah and make it very powerful, regarding two types of learning. The learning of the greatest Jews, as mentioned earlier, the sages, who are not learning practical Torah anymore. They can explore the hypotheticals of Torah. But the Gemara also uses that very concept of Yagdil Torah v'Yadir in regarding to amateurs of amateurs, beginners of beginners, little children. Because there is a halacha. The halacha is, if someone has a cheder, someone has a school, and there's been one cheder in the town, and then someone wants to open up another cheder, someone wants to open up another school. A different teacher comes and he prints whatever, and they start a new school. Now, generally in halacha, there is the idea that if you open a business next to someone else's business and you cause them this, is a problem. It's called asagas gevul, it's competition. It's not so simple. If you're going to cause harm to someone else, and you're not allowed to open up the business just across the street from the other person's fruit store, open up your fruit store, or at least you have to ask the rabbi. Wow, it's not so simple. But a cheder you're allowed to. And the Gemara says, because Yagdil Torah v'Yadir, there'll be two schools, then each one there'll be competition. Competition is good, because then it'll make each one try to outdo the other, and the teachers will really, they'll be, and since the learning of the children is more important than anything else, it's healthy for the education. It's going to improve the education. Yagdil Torah v'Yadir. Now, since we're using the same idea, increasing Torah is so important for the learning of children. How can you compare little children to the greatest scholars of scholars? And these children are learning Aleph Beis, and they're learning the deepest aspects of Torah. How can you? The answer is because of Yechidah Shebenefesh, of the Nitzutz of Mashiach, the spark of the divine, the essence of essence. Is no difference in the greatest scholar and the little child. Over there is where we're equal. So both in the beginning of Pirkei Avos and in the end of Pirkei Avos of that parak, we see this Kol Yisroel yesh lam chelek la'olam haba. This sicha is so rich that we've been learning it already 4, and you know what? I don't mind making a 5th class out of this. 5. Why? Because 5 levels of the soul, Yechidah Shebenefesh. And if I take the rest of the Sikha and teach it today, it's going to be chaplap. I thought I was going to do it in 3. Now I made it 4. Now it's going to be 5. But it's okay, 5 levels. But definitely next week, in the next class, we're going to be able to finish it. Because the next piece is going to explain how these 3 levels are there in Shabbos as well. The new Torah, the new world, and how it's brought about. And then finally, how it's connected to that year, Tafshinun Aleph, where the Rebbe drops bombs, unbelievable, incredible revelations. But we'll leave it Be'ezus Hashem for next week. I'm going to be on the road next week, so I hope I'm going to be in a place where there's going to be a good connection. So stay in touch with me. I do plan on doing the classes on the road. But I hope, Hashem will help. We'll have a Wi-Fi, and I'll be able to both have it streamed on YouTube and on the phone, as Ras Hashem, next week, Wednesday. So I could bench to everybody. Till then, we're going to be in Yerushalayim, so that'll be much better.